and welcome to Have a Chat. I'm your host today, Veronique Arsenault, and I am joined by a very dear friend, an old friend of the show. Old in that he's been around for a long time as a friend of the show, and not old because he's old, but he is kind of old, but it's okay. Anyway, we're joined by my co-host today, Patty Quinn. Welcome, Patty.
Well, Veronique, thank you for having me. This is a much needed outlet for me amidst all this COVID craziness. I've missed all my regular speaking engagements and trivia nights, missed an Ironman's baseball season. Timberwolves have yet to get underway, so I needed to get an outlet here, and thank you for providing the outlet and the invitation to be here.
You know what? We're just going to digress for a second. It must have been so strange not to go up that hill this summer to the Ironman ball field.
Well, I'm getting chills as I hear you say that. And I've said this to some people who just don't understand it. There's a certain segment of the population here in town, and I am one of them. We're baseball field rats and rink rats. And I don't even have to look at a schedule, Veronique. Most people don't even bother to look at a schedule. We're just so programmed that on Thursday evening, there's a ball game at 7:30. It's been that way for, 50 plus years for sure. And yeah, it was awful, truth be told. Man, oh man, just you miss the competition of it all. You miss the social outing of it all. It's been real tough. There's no question about that. I mean, that's minor. I mean, you missed the baseball season. Some would say, who cares? But you know what? When it's such a big part of your life, it does matter, and you realize how much it matters. And you know what? I would dare. I speak for myself here, Veronique, and maybe some other folks that I can think of. I think it'll adjust the way we go to events now. And rather than showing up at 7:25 for a 7:30 game, I'm going to go at 7 and make it an evening and see Veronique and see whoever else is around. And I'm going to engage more. I think it's adjusted the way that I'll act moving forward, if that is the right term.
Yeah, no, I get it. I do. It's funny, and I didn't go as often, obviously, as you did to Ironman Field, but there was just something, missing as I would drive by and I didn't see the people, lined up, like the cars lined up on that street, and you must have felt a little bit like every Thursday night at 7:30, you must have kind of almost started to go.
Oh, I've had to catch myself a few times, and I'd be lying to you. Call me crazy if you want, but I couldn't tell you the number of times this summer that I just drove up over the hill just to have a look at an empty ball field and go, oh, I miss it so much.
Oh. Oh.
And here we are on the cusp of hockey season now, and I live in the rink at during the winter months, and we've had one home game here so far, exhibition as it were, Veronique, and it's different for sure. The city of Miramichi as municipality has a host of rules that they've had to put into effect during this pandemic. And it's different, believe you me. It has adjusted the way we watch a hockey game at the Miramichi Civic Center. But hey, at least it's open and the lights were on and there was people in the building.
That's right. So one of our weekly traditions is we have our positive quote. And Patty, this week you've got that quote.
Well, listen, a lot of pressure with this particular weekly segment. So here I go. I hope I do Judy, Audrey, and yourself proud. I found one here in the old internet's, Veronique, from Mae West. And you ready for this?
I'm ready. Give it to me.
Close your eyes now and take this in, Veronique. You only live once. You only live once, but if you do it right, once is enough. And that's from Mae West.
I love Mae West. She just said it how, just the way it was.
Yeah.
I love her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then she shot stuff.
And you know what? It's a timely quote in the sense that, for all the right reasons, our lives have been put on hold. And maybe when we get the green light, we live it differently. We live it with ruthless abandon, as it were. And you know what? Maybe we'll take that vacation we've always wanted to take and have talked ourselves out of, be it for time reasons or financial reasons, or maybe I'll call Veronique and go for a coffee rather than go for a coffee by myself. I don't know. I think this, once we get through it, and we will get through it, there is some light at the end of the tunnel here. I think we'll see some positive signs and the way we interact with each other within our community, um, and on a global scale as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right for sure. But now, as you said, the city had put in some rules around how we could enjoy hockey for this point. But you actually took in we won't call it an event, but it's an ongoing event, really. That's going down. It's happening in the historic Chatham Business District,
Uh,
and you took a wander through there. Tell us about the Great Pumpkin Walk.
well, listen, I love Water Street in and of itself. I love it more so at night with the lights as you head up the street, as we would say around here. Of course, for folks who are watching from abroad, Water Street is a one-way street. It's of historic value here in town. Some old buildings, lots of quaint little shops down there, eateries and pubs, and the Great Pumpkin Walk is an effort or an initiative of the historic Chatham Business District. So kudos to John and his crew there. And if you can picture Water Street in your mind's eye, well, actually, Veronique, it starts on Henderson Street as you swing
Hmm.
on to Water Street, continues up past O'Donoghue's, and folks know where I mean when I say that here, and also on the side street that connects the water off of Wellington Kennard Street. It's just been fantastic. I was down there probably a week and a half ago, and I would guess, Veronique, it was 8ish. It was well dark, but you know what? Knock on wood. Lots of young families there, and I would recommend that you do take the young kids there. It's certainly designed for them by and large. But it's a great walk, and there's some great work there, and some of the shops were open, and it was just nice to get out and get some fresh air and see some people. And of course, we are all advised, and you are advised to continue to practice safe social distancing and interaction and all that good stuff. So keep that in mind as you do it, but strongly recommend it. Hate to put you on the spot. Have you been?
I have not been yet, but that is actually part of the plan this weekend because rumor has it that there's a pumpkin that looks just like you.
Well, look at when you have a head this size, Veronique. There's very few places you can put it, but a pumpkin is one of them, as it turns out. And I am there as interesting looking. I didn't even know. Truth be told, I was in front of one of the coffee shops on Water Street, and one of the ladies come to me and said, "Are you Patty?" And I said, "I am." And I had my mask on. I didn't quite know who she was. Pardon me for that. And she said, "I saw you up on Kennard Street," and I was like, "Oh my, here we go." And I tell you what, Veronique, organizers know me well because the former Ben's, and you remember that was on the corner, and then the Kennard on the top end of Kennard Street. And I was right equidistant between two of the local eating establishments here, so they know me well.
Absolutely. They picked the perfect spot for you to be. But you know what? You bring up such a good point because, of course, we are wearing masks now in public. They are mandatory indoors and outdoors. And I find myself not always recognizing people, right?
Oh yeah,
Because, like we're wearing hats more now. It's getting colder. We're bundled up. We've got our masks on. So please say hi to me, people, when you're out there. I might not have recognized you right away, but as soon as you start talking to me, I
yeah,
will know who you are.
yeah, yeah. You know, it's interesting you say that. This is my own cross to bear here, Veronique. I have a very and I'm still dealing with it. It's a day to day thing here because I work with the public every day. I have a very physiological reaction to wearing that mask, and I carry myself different. You'll recall a few years ago at your former establishment, we did that dining in the dark with the
Yeah.
Canadian CNIB. And you know what happened to me that day, and it was really bizarre, but it was real. And I find
Yeah.
myself the same way. When I put that mask on, uh, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I kind of slouch. I don't carry myself well, and I feel that, and I know that. So if you see me on the street, tell me to straighten up. I can take it. Please help me out.
Well, and it's interesting that you say that because it was remarkable for me. I mean, you and I have known each other for a lot of years, right? And
Mhm.
so it was remarkable for me when we did that dining in the dark event. And for those, for our
Yeah,
viewers at home that don't know what dining in the dark is, it was for CNIB, and it was an
yeah,
event where you wear a blindfold, and you eat, your supper. And I emceed that event for, I think it was 6 years that we were able to have it. But they would have a media launch every year right before that event. And so they would take folks like yourselves like yourself, and they would blindfold you, and then you would come into a restaurant, and you would order, you would pay, you would do all of those things, and it was remarkable for me because, as I said, we've known each other for a lot of years, but to see you shrink, I guess, was probably the
Mhm.
best word I could
That's the
I could
word. Yeah,
describe it.
word. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you shrunk into yourself, and that was so, you are a larger than life personality, absolutely. So for me, it was so stunning to see, because
yeah.
it it was so remarkable at the time.
Again, I don't know what the proper term is. Visceral comes to mind. It's a very visceral reaction I have to it. It's almost embarrassing, I would admit this, but I'm an open book, and I'll parlay it back to that CNIB day. It's your former establishment, Caesar's View Cafe. I was sore after that, and stiff in areas that you wouldn't expect to be stiff from eating dinner. No stranger to eating dinner am I. And I feel that day to day. Again, I don't carry myself well with that mask, and I know it. I try. I'm very conscious of it. But if you do see me, just understand that there's a little something going on with me. I don't know quite what it is, but I'll get through it.
Well, and it's, you know what, I'm glad you're sharing it, because we all have those moments, and it's funny, I tend to think I'm a little bit anonymous with the mask, but of course then I forget that I've got really red hair, right? So
Yeah,
it's but that's my biggest thing, is that I am so used to smiling, wherever I go, right? You run into people at the grocery store, you smile and say hi and whatever. And I'm still making those faces behind the mask. Then I get
yeah,
embarrassed, because I'm like,
yeah,
well, they can't see you. What are you doing? Right.
yeah,
So just know that when I'm doing that, I am actually smiling at you, and please smile
yeah.
back.
You know what, Vernie? Here along that same line, that trajectory. And again, it is what it is. I know it. I have been told, people behind counters, when you're walking into a said store or shop, they go, "Well, we always know it's you, Quinn, because we can hear you coming." And I know I'm loud, and I get it, but I guess I can apologize for that. Maybe I'm extra loud announcing my arrivals now. I don't know.
Well, it's funny, because I'm the opposite, because I'm getting quieter, right?
Yeah,
And
I know.
and
No.
because that mask is there, and I'm getting quieter. But anyway, it's, what, it's an adjustment period. We're all going to get through it, and at some point we'll look back, and I'll remember, all the different colored masks that I wore, and how ridiculous,
Yeah.
the fashion
Yeah.
was at the time. So, and that's okay. That's what we're going to do, and that's how we're going to get to that next phase, where we can define our lives a little bit more the way we want to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there's other stuff going on, of course, around the region. We've got Fletcher's Farm, and their corn maze is still happening. I love that. That's actually the plan this weekend for me, is the corn maze and then the pumpkin walk. Just to kind of, get outside, get a little bit more fresh air. I tend not to move from my desk as much as I used to, which is never a good idea. But yeah, so that's kind of the plans for this weekend. There's still lots going on. I think Wilson's Point has a haunted tour as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring those events up. You know what? Through it all, folks have made it work for themselves. Yeah, it looks differently, and yeah, they can't funnel as many people through at once as you would like to under normal circumstances. But patience is being asked of all attendees because you are waiting longer. Fact. It's harder to get into the Civic Center than it was this time last year. Fact. But you know what? I applaud everyone who's found a way to make whatever their organization of choice is and what their passion project is. Nothing but absolute respect. And I know it's not easy. I've been on the other side of it. It's not easy under normal conditions, if I can use the term normal conditions. So I can only imagine what it's like in these abnormal conditions and with all the curveballs that get thrown. And almost, Veronique, almost daily, almost by the hour, you got to check and go, can we do this anymore? And anyways, nothing but respect. And wherever you're watching, have a chat from in the province of New Brunswick. Get on your local social medias, check your local papers, radios, TVs, whatever. Find out an event because I can guarantee you your attendance means so much to these people. It always did, but it means even more now, I would suspect.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's our small local businesses have always been there for all of us. So for all of our events that we do and everything, they're always, donating and participating and volunteering. And so if you can support in any way, whether it be takeout, if it's a local restaurant, or, dropping in and buying a gift card, whatever it may be, or attending an event, because you're right, places like Fletcher's Farm or Wilson's Point or whatever it may be, each one of us mean a little bit more in these times than we did before. We were always important, but we're just a little bit more important.
That's a very good point. Very good point.
Yeah. So we'll shift a little bit down to south of the border, and the election's coming. We're a couple of weeks away from
Yeah.
from the U.S. election, and I know it's not. It doesn't impact us directly as far as it's not our elected government, but oh boy, it does impact us on a global scale.
Veronique, I have wide ranging thoughts and emotions about this. I'll try and contain myself, but I'm almost to the point where we're so super saturated with the goings on down there. The election is coming, Trump, Biden, Pence, the whole. It's just, it's almost farcical sometimes. And when you watch it, you go, "What? Like that happened? They said that," and you just can't imagine it. And then, but yet there's a generous portion of the populations that are going to vote for both. And come what may, and I don't know where it ends or how it ends. Don't ask me to pick a winner, for goodness sakes. I don't know. And you know what? I don't think anyone knows. I don't think any poll could predict what's going to happen here, for better or worse. And you know what I mean when I say for better or worse. I'd like to think that my horse in the race will win, but and the other lad won't. But I don't know. Who knows? All bets are off.
Well, that's the thing, and the only poll that matters is election day.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. And it's a fickle little area. You know this. It's a fickle little thing that can happen behind one of those ballot booths with your little golf pencil in hand. And, crazy things have happened there before. And I'm not just limiting that to the United States. It happens everywhere. But you know what? I'm a strong believer in the democratic process. And I do respect however anyone votes. So come what may.
Absolutely. Well, we're just going to head into break. Actually, we have a great show coming up right after the break. We have a wonderful guest that's going to be joining us. Chad Duplessis is going to be on today to talk about one of those events that had to pivot. And so we're looking forward to that. So don't go too far, everybody. As always, grab a snack, grab a coffee, or grab a cool beverage, whatever floats your boat, and come on back and join Patty and I and Chad right after the break. Don't go too far. Hi, and welcome back to Have a Chat. I am your host today, Veronique Arsenault, and I am joined by my most fabulous co-host, Patty Quinn.
Well, thanks for having me, Veronique. It's always a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Well, it's great to have a different perspective on the show every now and again, and it's been a while since we had you on, so I'm glad you're back.
All right. Well, thank you, and I look forward to
it. So, now we're joined actually by our guest today, which is very exciting. I'm thrilled about what's coming up and can't wait to hear all about it from Chad. So Chad Duplessis is joining us now, and he's, of course, city councilor here for the city of Miramichi, but that's not what we're talking about today. Welcome, Chad.
Hi to both of you.
But first, actually, just in case somebody doesn't know Chad, I would love for you to tell us all about you.
Yeah, totally. So Chad Duplessis, and as Veronique had mentioned, I do sit on city council at City of Miramichi. But my day job is just as kind of community oriented, just as dynamic. So I work as a community developer with Horizon Health. So work under the population health department, and through population health, we look at kind of the social economic factors of why people are healthy or unhealthy, and try to work with the community, nonprofits, neighbors, partners, certainly some of the folks in Horizon to address some of the issues and just build that capacity and and that's where this project kind of came out of that energy.
Well, that sounds heavy duty, Chad. And the reason you're on Have a Chat today, and thanks to Veronique for having you on, is the Mellow Yellow Block Party. Tell the folks all about that.
Totally. So the Mellow Yellow Block Party, at its core, was a collection of community organizers and community artists that came together to just try to solve the problem of how do we continue to organize and celebrate and take part in community in a COVID environment. So it's at its core, it was a celebration of mental health, which we feel some significant impacts because of the pandemic, and also just everything phase yellow. So the initial plan was to have a kind of bubbled. We all know what bubbling is now, and to have a bubbled kind of party at Elm Park, and but we had a bit of a situation with the outbreaks in Moncton and both Campbellton, and some of the committee said, okay, let's pause for a second, let's reevaluate, and which brings us to what we're promoting today is the virtual Mellow Yellow Block Party, which is going to be on November 13th, 2020. That's a Friday the 13th, 2020. So we're going to take it head on, and we're going to do a virtual event from the Carrefour Beausoleil Theater. And the band is a random night. Used to do they had done their random night of kindness benefits, and so they're going to be the entertainment. We're going to fold in a lot of just positive mental health messaging, get people talking, both in the program and hopefully in the community, just of what their mental health is like, what their neighbors' mental health is like, and just kind of build a stronger support system at the community level.
Chad,
let's talk about that for a second.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Yeah, no, you go ahead, Patty, and I'll chime in after that because I got a good question.
It's interesting how quick we've all made ourselves adapt to situations. Of course, Elm Park has recently been renovated, for lack of better, reconfigured, restructured, call it what you want. And now you're going to Carrefour Beausoleil. So just this whole COVID thing and how quickly organizations such as yourself are quick to adapt given the hand we're dealt, so to speak. Speak on that.
Yeah, very much so. And that was kind of the challenge right from the get-go. Like there was 13 of us plus the band, and I think it's like a 9-person band, right? So we had 20 citizens kind of leaned in, and everyone was on the same page that phase orange might roll down, the weather might turn against us, but just that idea of being resilient and working with the pendulum of COVID-19 and the restrictions that come with it. And I think it's just being fluid, being flexible, and being committed. I know it's got to be nothing takes the wind out of a good idea like a COVID operational plan, right? Like, let's do this. And wouldn't that be fun? Oh, we should figure out a COVID operational plan first. That's pretty deflating for a lot of community groups. And so we wanted to get the folks together and power through that. And so I think we did that and certainly took the opportunity. There's a whole array of new things that we can do with the virtual format. Obviously, we've seen virtual formats of community events. And so I think we're building and we're getting better at that kind of format and that medium each time too. So,
Chad, you're talking to, well, probably the three of us actually are probably some of the most involved volunteers in the community. And the community is definitely driven by volunteers. And having missed out on most of our events this summer, as far as even being able to participate or attend or put the hard work in and get them up and running. Why was it important to, one, come up with the idea originally to go into Elm Park, but two, pivot and then have it virtually? Why was that so important?
I think it's just, I think the folks that are on the table, and I think I'd include all of us in that conversation, it's part of our mental health to do this stuff. And when you don't do it, when you don't get that rush of endorphins and that sense of accomplishment, you just lose a sense of purpose a little bit, right? If you're a doer. And so I don't think anyone really had a hesitation. I almost felt kind of guilty of saying, okay, we're going to move indoors, if you will. But people are like, no, let's keep going, right? And, the band, they've been rehearsing for a number of months. That same thing could happen to them. where we don't get to perform. So, and they were the same way. They got to jam. It was good for their mental health to come out and be with each other. Yeah, so I think it's just important that we figure out how to get back on track as much as we can, right? Like, I don't think the new norm is defined yet, so I think we'll continue to shape that.
Chad, Mellow Yellow Block Party. Pardon me if I missed the memo on this one. Is there any significance of that name?
No, well, to be completely honest, it started, the idea popped in my head, sitting on my front porch during the lockdown and watching all of my neighbor kids, because they were still being 6 feet apart and stuff, right? We didn't have bubbles yet. And just watching them out on the street, because you couldn't go into each other's backyards, but the street became vibrant and filled again with kids biking and playing and drawing on the street with chalk. And it had that block party feel, right? And so again, the idea of like, how can we create a COVID safe block party was the initial kind of, and that evolved as more people kind of got involved and we realized we needed space, and celebration of all things phase yellow, right? Where we felt our community at times saying like, no mask, yes mask, no vaccine, yes vaccine. But just saying like, let's just take a really super positive approach to the guidelines that are being asked of us. So I know Veronique had volunteered to source out like 300 yellow masks for the event, which we won't need anymore. So I think Veronique has a huge supply of yellow masks at her house. But yeah, just leaning into those that phase yellow, and just letting everyone kind of mellow out a little bit, right? And who doesn't like to rhyme?
Well, it was interesting because you're right. I mean, this all came about because of Chad, and Chad put this call out onto Facebook, and he said, "This is what I'm thinking. Anybody want in?" And of course, he was flooded with helpers, and
Yeah.
it evolved from there, and it's been quite amazing to watch the engagement and the thought
Yeah.
process around it. Talk to us a little bit about the operational plan and why that was so important and how we had to go through that in order to be able to even get to the phase that we were at.
Yeah. So it's nothing takes the wind out of your sails like a COVID operational plan. But even in that, with the event that didn't happen, the intention was to create these little mini bubbles, like 16 feet by 16 feet in the park. And some of our volunteers, you can see some of the boxes that we got behind us. All of those were going to be filled up, and they still will be filled up with like journals, bubbles, rocks to paint. So we were making these little mini block parties in the park. So there would have been 16 different little separate mini block parties with one stage for entertainment. I think we'll still do that again. I think there's still an opportunity come the springtime to, once we get this all fleshed out. And it's been this kind of process of like, would this work? Has this work? And people were finding ideas. So I think there's a phase 2 for this. I think there's a phase 3. I think we could go into neighborhoods and do a pop-up Mellow Yellow Block Party, put out some kind of information around mental health services, and just get people kind of dialoguing a little bit of checking in with each other, and especially going in the winter, it's going to be tough.
Chad, before we get back to the Mellow Yellow Block Party, Veronique, if you'll allow me to follow along this trajectory, real quickly for folks. Obviously, it's a point of honor or a point of interest and honor for all of us, and pride would be the word I'm looking for there. Just touch on Elm Park and the beautification that's recently taken place there for those who maybe haven't visited us in a while.
Yeah, that was. It certainly was a project that was needed. We saw what was done with Queen Elizabeth Park to bring that back, and to kind of restore that character of that park and brighten it up, increase those sight lines. The things that you don't realize are valuable until you do it. And so we lost a few kind of dusty old pine trees along the way, but I think it's certainly a more inviting space now with the new mural, which was never part of the design. That was just happenstance that the Festival Inspire knocked on our door and wanted to put a mural, and we pointed to the library. But that's really created a nice sense of place, which I think the gazebo was in its heyday. And then the furniture's not even in yet. So the furniture, the city made a little bit more of an investment into the furniture to get a little bit nicer stuff, a little bit more stylized stuff. Like one of my my favorites that I've seen in the design was like like a Shea lounge kind of style furniture
Mm.
closer to the library, so people can grab a book and pop up and kind of hang out. So I think ultimately it's going to be a nice inviting space. It's definitely going to be the patio for Dixie Lee. There's no doubt about that. And yeah, it's definitely a nice space, much more inviting. And I think, you know, if we look ahead a little bit, you know, next August when all the flower beds are planted and stuff, it's going to be, you know, certainly a space that we want to animate as a community.
Listen, sitting on a chaise lounge by the library with an econo dinner will never be a bad idea.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like the best day ever.
Yeah.
I know.
Chad,
I'm
back
with
to
you.
Mellow Yellow Block Party. How will this unfold? What will it look like?
Yeah, so we're going to go Facebook Live. We're going to reach out to some community partners to help support the live feed. Um, the kind of mini bubbles that we talked about earlier, and the mini block parties with, you know, the boxes that are behind me filled with goodies. We're going to get those still out into the community and ask people to gather on a Friday night to tune in. I know I'm assuming both of you had caught at least one of the random night of kindness events, and a random night as a band. They're top notch, incredible, high energy. You know, it's that top
Yeah.
40 with those like B-side classics that get into their rotation, and then with Careful Busselay and their technical skills, Brian Siddle leaning in, Gene Fowler's doing a graphic package for the event. So I think, you know, we have huge assets here in the community, and it's an opportunity for, once again, to allow people to share their skills and put something in. So to your point though, tune in 7 o'clock Friday the 13th of November 2020. And yeah, if you've got a smart TV, put it on the smart TV, turn the radio up or turn the speakers up, and take it in. So we're kind of going for this like mental health awareness telethon kind of vibe, right? Um, and I'm sure the band will do their part, and there'll be some door prizes, and again, get some of that good positive conversation going around mental health and mental health care, and then some information for some of the mental health service providers that are in our community that are there to help.
I was chatting with Dave Pike from the band a couple nights ago, and I can't wait to see their set list. He was kind of giving me a little preview, and they're supposed to have their set list ready to go for the most part by the end of this week.
Yeah,
And it just sounds like it's going to be an amazing night, and one of those nights that everybody can kind of get into. It's great music. It's a lot of fun.
yeah.
It's, you know, there'll be some messaging for sure, and some things that we want to talk about, but it's really about having a great time and enjoying ourselves.
Yeah, and I think again going through the, you know, the everyone's got a story, so there'll be a little bit of story sharing, um, and but more on that prevention, right? Like I know my friend Dan, who's in the band, you know, his thing is getting out and running, and that's what keeps him healthy, right, mentally. So again, sharing that and just kind of creating that support system and putting a positive spin to this troubling kind of time that we're in, to be honest.
Well, Chad, following that line of thought, as you bring that to the forefront in your, I'll appeal to professional Chad here on this one. In your professional opinion, how are we holding up here in Miramichi? Things are okay.
I think so. I think like there was a real moment of kind of fear, you know, if we go back to those initial days. Um, I think some of the things that had concerned us as a community are, you know, we have such a strong public sector um, for our economy, not overly diversified, but I think that helped us, right? You know, we allowed people in our community kept working. I know in your industry, car sales were really good. People were buying lots of vehicles. So economically, I think we did pretty well. The housing industry is going like bonkers. Just before this call, I was on a board meeting call with the Multicultural Association. They're seeing newcomers moving quickly. They're getting to a housing crunch again because of the people moving from Ontario. Um, you know, I think the silver lining from not only Miramichi but the Atlantic region, when we look certainly at immigration as an economic factor, you know, it's going to help us as we recover, and I think um, the Atlantic region, Miramichi, will be able to recover strong. I really have no doubts about that. the mental health side of it, especially as we get these scares, is something that our mental health system was already stretched,
Hmm.
and more and more, right? And the virus and the economy get an awful lot of attention in terms of impacts of this pandemic. But we know from like the information that public safety is sharing that the psychosocial is where we're seeing some of the damages.
Hmm.
So it's just we just need to be there for each other.
I'm going to jump back in real
Yeah.
quickly, Veronique. I know we're short
Yep.
on time, and chat over and above all that. Veronique sees it every day. You see it every day, as do I. Amidst all the doom and gloom, if you will, there is some new investment in our community, some new businesses popping up through it all. If you can imagine that.
Yeah, yeah, like restaurants, like
Yeah,
and
yeah.
there's young families moving here to open up restaurants. The Golden Oaks in Newcastle, the Namaste Bistro in downtown Chatham, um, and people are they're busy. So again, I think our we're keeping moving. I think that we lost the festivals, right? But places are still vibrant. And yeah, it's I think we're going to recover pretty well, to be honest.
Okay, so we'll hold that thought and we'll talk a little bit about that when we come back from break. So,
Yep.
everybody go and grab a coffee, have a little snack. You want to hear more about this. We'll be right back. Don't go too far. Come back and see us right after this. So let's talk a little bit. We were talking about, coming through the pandemic, some of those moments that were, scarier than others. Our full lockdown that happened throughout the spring was probably, one of those times, right? And then as we started to see the outbreaks in the rest of the province, it's so tough to watch other communities going through this, and we've seen this twice now with Campbellton, which is incredibly
Mhm.
unfortunate, and with Moncton as well. Um, but let's talk a little bit about how we're getting through this. Judy and Audrey and I have talked a lot about it on the show. I find, for me, being home tough. I mean, I get my drive and my excitement and my you know sense of being and belonging from being out in the community. So being home and working from home has been a challenge for me. I'm lucky I'm working from home, of course, but it has been a challenge for me. Patty, how are you doing with all this?
You know what, Veronique, interesting question. Dating back to the onset here, we were laid off at work, and that was hard. There was so much uncertainty. You're saying goodbye to your coworkers and colleagues, and you don't know what tomorrow will bring. On a personal level, I was involved in many events that didn't get off the ground this year, and as Chad and you have both indicated, that is, excuse me, a point of pride. It is who we are. So it's been tough. It's been real tough. I tell you what, one of the starkest memories I have from it was when I got a call from my son, who was at the time at UNB, and they were shutting down the residences, and the kids were being told to go home. And it was just an unbelievable situation over there, and you could see the international students talking to their mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, family, to sum it all up, and in their language of origin, or their mother tongue, as you were. But you just knew they were having some hard conversations. And as a parent, you're like, oh my gosh, here you are picking yours up. You're only 2 hours from home, and some of these kids were half a world away. And that's the one memory that stays with me. Just like, what are those kids going to do if I leave them here behind me in Fredericton, as every other mom and dad were leaving those kids behind? It was just, I still wrestle with that, truth be told. I don't know any of them, but I do think of the ones that I met ever so briefly that particular evening.
Yeah, that would be that. I can see how that would be something that would stick with you. Chad, how about you? How have you been doing since this all started?
I mean, it feels like it's a lifetime to reflect and digest on it, to be honest. Um, like when you think back of those initial days when it was like every morning you woke up to a new paradigm shift. There was, especially when the media that we watch, right, from coming out of the States and even our own, our own kind of stuff in Canada and that sort of thing too. And so I think because of the pandemic, like you feel like maybe wounds were opened up a little bit, where like it was just everything just hit a little bit harder, right? For me
Yeah.
anyway, where you could kind of dismiss some of the trials and tribulations that we see every day in the world. They felt heavier, um, and I think we lost all our distractions. I think that's part of it, right? Like um, they exist for a reason. The sports and the movies and the concerts,
Yeah.
festivals.
Yeah.
They serve a real human need for us, and when those fell away, it we just it was tough. And then the concern of certainly our older population, again in those early shutdown weeks when we didn't have a new norm, right? That wasn't even a concept. And then in my work, it was it was a really strange time with work where government doors kind of like flew open, and we were all in problem solving mode. Funding was coming, for certainly food security work and homelessness, and uh, and you could just kind of see of the potential of government, and once we kind of all hands on deck. And then all of that being said, I'm constantly reminded that this is 6 billion people. This is the whole world kind of, wrestling with this. And I think we connect to that too. And I find that often kind of striking. Me, again, as Patty reflects personally, on a personal level, it was tough. Really, some tough times in April. Got my stuff together, and we're back on track now. But the work from home and just the previous conditions, it was tough come April. The whole month of April, to be honest. Hard time getting off the couch, hard time getting out of the blankets, and a few really long drives by the hospital and around the river. And yeah, and but I think on to finish on a bit of a positive, my kids, I got 3 young kids at home. Calla, who's 4, Camden, who's 9, and Edie, who's 7. And they had the longest summer break of their lives. It's 6 months of like, and it was March break, and then it turned into summer, and every day they're outside playing, right? And if we could just slow things down, if we could just get away from the TVs, if we could get back outside and get away from the over, structure, all that was given to us. And I know my family unit, my kids particular, I think we became a lot healthier because of it, to be honest. And so yeah, it's a mixed bag, but like, everything's just a little bit more in a pandemic.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. It is just a little bit more, and you're right. For me, it was getting to spend time with my mom. Mom had been in the hospital for
Yeah,
9 weeks, and then she came home just before COVID hit. And so it was an opportunity for me to be able to be with her every day and help her, on her in her goals of getting better, which she's just about there now. So
yeah,
it did provide that in my life, and I wouldn't have had that if I was going to work every day, right?
yeah.
If I may
No,
jump back in here real quickly, Chad, and this is something I know you're privy to. I'll appeal to counselor to place you on this one. But as things ramp back up and we try to get some degree of normalcy, I had a Miramichi Civic Center outing a few weeks ago to a Miramichi Timberwolves game against the visiting team, and it was really bizarre in the sense that almost none of us knew how to. Here we are back in the rink where we're having an outing. There are people here. The lights are on. But it was almost eerie in the sense that none of us knew really how to act because there was, now there's arrows on the floor, and now you have to sit in your seat, and we're a standing
Yeah.
kind of town. Chad, Veronique, you know that. No one sits in the Miramichi Civic Center. Everyone
Yeah.
stands on the rail, and I tell you, it was great to be back out, but there's a whole new normal out here that we have to embrace and embrace real quickly if we're gonna tackle it head on here.
Yeah, 100%. And the and I think that's it. It's a frame of mind. It's a perspective that we do have to embrace it. We do have to bring a positive perspective towards it, and but yeah, there's everything changing, and But I think the new normal isn't established yet, I don't think, and we're still kind of crafting it, and we'll continue to get better at it, I think.
Well, and I have to say this though, I laugh at myself because, in those first couple of weeks, they sent us home from work, and I remember going to the grocery store and I bought myself 2 weeks of snacks, right? Snacks and all the things that I never usually eat
Mm-hmm.
because it's the good stuff, right? And I bought myself 2 weeks of snacks, and because that's what we were going back to work after that, right? Everything was going back
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
regular normal. And I laugh now because here we are, in month 7. And
Yeah.
but I ate the 2 weeks of snacks in the first 2 days, right? Because what else are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
I put the COVID-19 right around the old gut. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's where
Yeah.
my
exactly.
COVID-19 went. No doubt about
That's
it.
exactly it. Yeah,
Mellow
but
Yellow Block Party, Chad. I notice on your lapel there you have a pin. Can you explain the significance of that?
Yeah, so this was probably one of the coolest things that's come out of the planning. And two of our volunteers, Andrea and Allison, and their brainstorming around the bubbles and the programming, came up with this idea of handing out just simple little yellow, I got another one here, just little yellow buttons. So we have 200 of them. We're calling it the Yellow Button Project. So hashtag Yellow Button Project, hashtag Let's Listen, to kind of engage, identify, and support active mental health listeners in our community. So I don't know if you're familiar with like the Moose Hide campaign to end abuse of Indigenous women and children, and where you wear a little bit of a piece of moose hide and as a conversation starter. So I think borrowing to some of the theories of that project, but just a way for community members to self-identify as a good active mental health listener. We have some information around how to be a good mental health listener, body language, questions to ask, questions not to ask. We'll circulate that information into the community with the program. And yeah, so at the end of the day, if once the program gets launched, that if you came across someone and you saw them wearing a little yellow button, you'd know that they're willing to hear your story and take the time to listen. And they might even have just a little bit of training and at least how to make you feel a little bit more comfortable about it. So the conversation like we just had, they're super meaningful conversations, and especially if they're folks that are a little bit closer to us, they're often difficult conversations to have. So again, to engage, support, and identify good, active mental health listeners in our community. So we got 200 buttons, but we think this program has a bunch of legs. Um, so we'll launch it. And we'll look for folks like yourselves to put the button on, grab a selfie, hashtag Yellow Button Project, hashtag Let's Listen. And I think too, it's a nice counterbalance to the Bell Let's Talk program, where there's two sides to that equation of talking and listening. And I know from my personal experience and some friends who certainly got close to crisis, and their comment was, it's they tell us to talk, but sometimes people just don't want to listen, right? They might, but it's difficult.
Yeah, and that's the challenge, right? And I think sometimes or often we don't tend to open that conversation because we don't want to say the wrong thing,
Yeah,
or we don't know what to say, or we don't know, I it's hard when you see your friends struggling or you see your family members struggling and you think, I really wish I could help them. Why don't they just tell me? But
mm-hmm.
oftentimes what happens, and we see it, and I see it with my good friends where they finally open up and they say, well, I didn't know if you would listen. I didn't know if you would judge me. I didn't know if
Yeah,
you would, think less of me. So I love the
yeah,
idea of the Yellow Button Project to open that conversation.
yeah. And I think like one of the core teachings that in the information that we'll distribute is listening, right? Like, and I think as problem solvers and healers and certainly family members that we want to give advice, we want to solve the problem. It's not up to us. So it's just listen, um, and some body language tips and some things like that will come along as well. But yeah, again, I think it has a ton of legs. I think there's a value to it, and we're excited to see where this goes and monitor those hashtags and and see how many buttons we end up printing by the time this is all said and done.
And Chad, just for folks, of course, the Mellow Yellow Block Party is for the time being a Miramichi centric thing. Hate to put you on the spot, but as far as getting one's hands on a yellow button, how would one do that?
So I think ideally we're going to distribute them through the 200 buttons we have printed. I mean, we can go get more, but we'll launch it during the Mellow Yellow Block Party. We'll distribute it to some kind of community influencers and folks like that. And then like there was an ask for prison staff already. There has been an ask for detox staff. So I mean, going into workplaces would be super simple. Putting little boxes of coffee shops to grab one with the messaging. And I think, again, a bit of a nod to the Moosehide campaign to make sure to Google it. But they've developed a model, a nationwide model of how this kind of this style of campaigning and promotion can happen.
Tell us a little bit, Chad, about what's in the boxes behind you, and what when they get to our bubbles at home, what are they going to look like?
Yeah, but there's bubbles. We have lots of bubbles. We have bubble machines, bubbles, and there's little journals for journaling. Super healthy thing that you can do. Writing down your gratitudes, writing down thoughts, reflections. So there'll be things like that. There's rocks and paint kits to paint your rocks. Again, we were thinking of this in the park. And then some pamphlets and information on some of our mental health services out there. That's super important. And yeah, there were some other goodies too that Andrea has in her possession that I haven't. Are skipping my mind here right now. But goodies and
That's always the way.
And yeah, there's some fun stuff in there, but certainly some mental health service information, and just a couple things to help you celebrate.
Awesome. Listen, I can't wait. I can't wait till this event happens, and then and what will spin off from it. I really want to thank you, Chad, for joining us today. It was such a pleasure and so much information, and I appreciate the openness that you always show.